Welcome back to Sunrise, and we're still looking at the nation. I mean, 7 days away to the elections, but then there are other things that also need some level of attention, and one of those is the judiciary. Reforming the Nigerian judiciary has been a subject of discussion for some years now. There have been several allegations that many judges in the Nigerian courtrooms are corrupt and are open to negotiations. Most Nigerians do not trust the courts anymore, as the judiciary, which is perhaps the hope for the common man, has now been compromised and caught in the web of corruption. Is that really the case? Or is it a case of painting, how do they say now?
Giving a dog a bad name.
Giving a dog a bad name after creating a bad situation for the dog. Well, we're not the ones to answer that question. So to help us understand what is going on and judicial reforms, we have in the studio Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Adeyinka Olumide Fusika. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And then also here is
Mr.
Dr.
Proverbs
Chima Naji. This is Mr. Proverbs. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
So let me begin with you, Mr. Naji. Does the judiciary need reform?
Of course, you should expect that anything under the sun must constantly either reinvent itself or be reformed by some external forces that interact with that particular entity. So yes, it needs reform.
Okay. Mr. Fusika, in what way? I mean, we've had allegations. We have all sorts of things against or about the judiciary. We have had all sorts of comments, and those men there cannot speak for themselves, so to speak. In what way should the judiciary be reformed? Can I assist?
Well, it depends on what you mean by reform. What exactly is it that we don't have laws, or the process of enforcing those laws is faulty?
Okay, so let me put it this way. Is it a question of no enforcement of the rules that we have? Because apparently there are rules for everything in this country. And someone once said that Nigeria's laws and policies are actually studied abroad and considered amongst the best. So what is the problem? Why is it that we have such things happening and then we say our institutions are not working?
So the problem is not about reforming the judiciary, really. It's about reforming ourselves. You know,
So what you're saying is that the judiciary is part of this society. So let's start from the society.
You're right. We should reform ourselves. That's the thing. For sociologists who have studied Nigeria, would you say, for instance, that the quality of governance that we experience today is comparable in terms of purpose, leadership, attainment with what we experienced in the First Republic or even in the Second Republic? The truth is that there is a continuous degeneration in the, I'm sorry to say, human quality, that we have in this environment. So when you talk about reforming the judiciary, I really don't, we need to specify what exactly is the issue. When you take people from lawyers, we are not descended from heaven. We are produced in this environment.
Product of this society.
Of this society. So I wouldn't say that we deserve what we are getting. All I'm saying is that, look, it's all about reforming ourselves. In your little environment, if you are put in charge of, if you have responsibility, try and tell yourself, let me discharge your responsibility. There's no law that says anybody should be corrupt. In fact, the law says don't be corrupt. If you are corrupt, you'll be dealt with. That's what the law says. The courts are there, to enforce the laws. But when you have lawyers, judges, administrators, look, let me give you an example. We're talking about the minimum wage in Nigeria. We are struggling to get to 30,000 naira, whatever. You are looking at judges. That's the concentration of most people. But when you look, the judiciary is not the judges alone. It's a system. When you look at those court clerks, court registrars, go and find out how much they are paid. some live in wherever, and they have to come to work every day, say Lagos Island. How much are they receiving? You know, by the time you look at what they are receiving in terms of pay, you know that, and this person we are talking about will probably have a family, 2 or 3 children. They are all going to school. You are paying them maybe about 40,000, 50,000 a month. Every day they go to work. They resume every day, and they go back every day. We all know that the 40,000 or the 50,000 is not what is bringing them there or taking them back, but they resume every day. So if you have needs and you cannot meet them legitimately, and you are meeting them, what conclusion do you draw? So the whole thing is systemic. Let's not talk about judges. Judges are this, judges are that, you know, without looking at the entire gamut of the judiciary. We need to look at issues, what is affecting the performance of the judiciary, you know, and what can we do about it? If you want to file a case today, or you want to serve a process, we talk about delay. You know, it's just like any civil service environment. You have to move from table to table, chasing, you know, your file, wanting to, okay, how do you get this served and all that? Whereas this thing is supposed to
with some help.
Yeah,
with some help.
Yes.
There are those who argue that.
Just 1 second. I think it is important to clearly situate the question. You asked whether the judiciary requires reform. The learned SAN seem to be agreeable to the fact that the judiciary, like any other segment of our society, they talked about governance, requires some reforms. You cannot reform the individual when the system is itself faulty or has outlived its usefulness. For example, the reference he made to the governance quality today. Those people who were governing the country in the circumstance they did had a certain level of training, certain level of perception of life from a kaleidoscope of discipline, a certain degree of conceptualization of life, either from a religious point of view or a high level and high dosage of philosophy. Because governance today is bereft of philosophy. There is no content. What we have is context. But I don't want to go into the issue of governance. When we take about judiciary, it is not just a focus on what is happening now that the judges are corrupt. That's not what I'm looking at. A higher level of reformation. In the courts today, the judges still do longhand or whatever they call it. It has its effect on quality of judicial delivery. We talked about the equipment in the judiciary, the budget. Just the other time, people were insisting that whatever had been budgeted at the National Assembly should be handed over straight to the third arm of government. Just to avoid a situation where the CJN or anybody so authorized will go cap in hand to the executive and be dictated to about what needs to be done in the judicial process. So there are a lot of issues about reformation that must take place beyond even the shenanigan of corruption. Because like Neot has talked about, is it that you want to call a dog a bad name, or you hang the bone on its neck in order to call it a bad name? So there are a lot of issues that require reformation and of necessity. So it's not just the individual. In fact, even in those people who used to talk about personnel management in the narrow sense, today they are talking about manpower development, human resources, and all that. That you fit the job to the man, or the man to the job. So you want a man to behave as and change his environment and circumstance. So that is the issue.
Okay, Mr. Olumide Fusika, you spoke about judges being products of our society, and we should start by looking at the society. So would you say that people are being unfair when they expect a certain amount of, should I say, reformed, or should I say better behavior from people of your ilk because of the training and the respect which you have in the society?
No, it's not. The expectation is it's
It's in order.
yeah, it's in order.
So when we don't get it, what should we do?
I mean, what's all I've said is that we look at lawyers and judges as if they are, I mean, Nigerian lawyers and judges. That's what I mean, as if they are not Nigerians.
No, we don't look at lawyers like that. We look at judges like that.
Well,
we expect them to be above board.
No, let me say this. Before we generalize, do we know how many are the number of judges we have in Nigeria?
And how many have been alleged to have been corrupt?
For everyone that we know of, that say, oh, this one is corrupt. You have so many others. It's not. The situation is not. Well, maybe I'm sorry for It's not like it's a mass thing. Every judge is up there for the take. I know judges. We practice before them. The truth of the matter is that if you're a lawyer and you're active, you know the ones that not necessarily on the take. See, the corruption we are talking about is not about money alone. When you see judges who go to parties, have social life and so on and so forth. Sometimes it's not because somebody has paid them, wanting to do a favor for members of their social circle, religious organization, and so on and so forth, turning things around. But they are very few. That's what I'm saying. We know all this, but the thing is, should any one of them be corrupt at all? The position of a judge